Alright, so yo, my man, why don't you let everybody know your name and where you from, man?
Yeah. Skyzmuzik. That's my production name, aka the Beat Bully. I mean, I'm here. Right here, Mount Vernon, Murderville, stand up.
Alright, so Skies, man, let me ask you, man, how did you get into music, period?
Well, I started out doing piano when I was 4 and 5. You know, my uncle gave me a keyboard when I was 5, and I was like, is there people sing and talk? Is there the radio? I used to, figure it out on piano, and my mom saw that, and she's like, wow. This is the time I was still in Jamaica, and my mom was like, yo, I really see something in you as far as that's concerned. And we moved up to Mount Vernon, and she enrolled me in Bella School of Music in Yonkers, New York. And I was there, I learned the music theory, I learned the notes, I learned, classical pieces, I learned how to voice them on the keyboard and everything else like that. And I took that and went to elementary school and joined the band and played different instruments in the band. I did trumpet, clarinet, saxophone, drums, so I ended up doing everything. And then after that, once you learn the notes and the music theory, you could pick up anything and play it. So, I basically, one-man band man, and nobody has to come and play on any of my records. I do it all myself. And, I put it all together and arrange it and do everything myself, so it's just everything together just makes the audio nitrogen for me, so that's how it all comes together for Skyzmuzik for me, and the records that I put out and how I came in, and how music became a part of me.
Right, so let me ask you, man, like how do you get into your production?
This is back when I was probably about 15 years old, sophomore high school. I had a lot of people in my family that were rappers and everything else like that. And around this same time, the Dipset era started coming out, and everybody was attaching to their music, and being that I was Jamaican and I heard the Dipset anthem and all those other records, I really gravitated to that because it's something that I knew and I was familiar with, culture-wise. So I was like, hey man, I could do these things. I mean, I could play all the instruments, I could do whatever. All I gotta do is learn how to put it all out into an instrumental. So hearing the Dipset on the whole movement, shouts to Arsonist, shouts to Heat Makers, like they really influenced me and to become a producer, to put everything together. I was a musician, but from turning me from musician to a musician / producer and everything and bringing it together, like that really led me to really become a producer. My cousin Shane Hall, he was a rapper, really gained a lot of buzz back in that day, and he's still trying now. He's still doing his thing now. He was coming out with songs, and that influenced me. Hey, I really think that this is what I really want to do, myself. But I mean, obviously, there's a difference between it being a hobby and a job. So I have to try my best to get money and turn that into revenue. Yeah, so I mean, not to digress anything, but I had to, when it came to putting together my sound and everything else like that, I ended up mixing a lot of what I used to hear growing up and how the classical situation came in and putting everything together and making and finding myself as a producer. I didn't want to sound like anybody else. I wanted to be myself. My name Skyzmuzik means above average, above, the norm, being above,
So that's the meaning behind the name.
Yeah, while everybody's trying to be in their own lane, I'm in my own plane. That's just how.
I hear you.
I do mine, and I just bring all my thoughts and my feelings, and I just zone out and just lay it all out. So
Nice.
that's me.
Nice. Now, Skies, coming up, man, in the business, did you have any influence?
Um,
Any, your peers, anybody, any other hip hop producers, period?
yeah, I mean, I actually have, uncle and a cousin that are actually, big producers. Dave Jim Hall. I mean, he did What's the 411 for Mary J. Blige. Did all most of that album. He did Madonna, Michael Jackson. Like he did like everything, and my other family member Neville Hodge. He did LL Cool J stuff, I'll Be Sure stuff.
It's in the bloodline.
So yeah. So it's in the bloodline. I see all their records and big plaques.
When you had inspirations,
Yeah.
strong inspirations.
Yeah, and at the same time, I asked him one day, how do I get all that? And he said, hard work. Walked off of me. So I mean, they never helped me, in any way, shape, or form as far as plugging me into anything. I just did everything myself as far as put myself out there and doing that. But seeing them and seeing the success that they have incurred after a while, and hearing their stories and hear them talking about what they've been through and what they did back in the 90s and so forth, I really was like, yo, why can't that be me? Some of them can't play like me, or I used to play and help them do records. So it was just like at a young age, so it was just like, well, I can do this myself and then put it all together. So even one time I told my uncle, like, hey man, I ain't even talking to you till I get a plaque. I mean, I have that respect, and I have, I see what they've done. So I mean, they really influenced me to be the best producer that I could be. Why not shoot for the moon? So that's just watching them and.
Yeah, you was already above the sky, so
exactly. So I try my best. Shoot. Shooting is no limit.
Yeah.
So music can take you really where you want to be if you have that real love for it. So, those were my influences there.
Yo, Sky, let me ask you that.
Mm-hmm.
And when it came to getting your first placement, man, do you remember that?
Oh man, well, I remember that whole situation where that was concerned. My very, very, very first placement was actually for J.R. Writer. I mean, I've done probably about almost 15 beats with J.R. Writer. I mean, but I really respected him as far as his lyrical, content. I mean, he's from the streets. He's been around a lot of things. I mean, the first beat I ever did for J.R. Writer was called On My Way to Space. And he actually came out from where he was at and came and met us at the studio in the Bronx in Castle Hill. And he came out there and sat there and listened to the beat and said, hey, I'm about to go in. And for him to do that, and he came in and it was on his politics and bullshit mixtape. And yeah, that was my first placement, period. And then I went on to do a lot of other records like Hell Rel. I did like Get in Line, Get Lined Up, The Ruger Show. I did ton, Fresher Than a Newborn. I did a lot of Hell Rel records. I did what else I did? I did Fire on Joel Santana Skull Gang mixtape. So in that old Dipset arena was where I first, arrived. Skyzmuzik first arrived. So I'll never forget, that. So, those were my first legitimate placements that, I'll never forget. So that was the first big one.
So Sky, man, like, let me ask you this, man. Like, what equipment did you start with, and what do you use now?
I first started with the MP. MP. Didn't like it at first. I mean, I'm a person, when I have my ideas, I want to lay them out. MP, you're always wheeling. So I mean, I ended up doing a lot of switching up. So after I left MP, I started with FL. I started doing FL, and then after I went to FL, I started using Reason for a little bit, and Logic. But my primary go-to equipment now is between between FL, because I have so many plugins and things that I use through my MIDI controller. Between that and the Nico. So I go back and forth to it, but sometimes when I just want to lay stuff out, I use FL because I could just knock things out. Because I've used it since I was a teenager, very, very young. So you tend to go back to what you're familiar with the most, or what you use the most. So whatever happens, I always end up going to what I always knew. So that's just how it was for me. So that's what I use mostly.
Yo, Sky, in your opinion, man, who do you think is your top 5 producers of all time in hip hop, R&B, whatever?
I'm gonna say, not in any specific order, but I give people props based on what I appreciate about them. So Timbaland, I give Timbaland props because of his out of the box thinking. He puts in the weirdest things and makes it all work. And his percussions underneath a simple drum pattern is what brings his sound out. And I give him props for that. I like Jay Dilla. Rest in peace, Jay Dilla. He took samples and turned it into something totally different. One of my favorite records he did was that's So Much More with De La Soul. I really like that record a lot. I still play it up till today. So I liked him too. I really like Polar Dawn. I like Polar Dawn because he takes loops, a simple loops and knows how to make it big into a big record. So I like him and how he does his his drums are very strong. So I like him for that. So I'm going 3 already. Let's see who else I actually would say. Who else would I say? Heatmakers. Obviously because they were instrumental in starting me and influencing me to do what I do. So and I obviously give Heatmakers the credit that they deserve. And Primo. Primo has his ways of turning things and his snares and all that powerful, and his whole swing, where he does his beats, So those probably be my 5 that reach out to me musically, that I'd give my respect, complete respect to. So those 5. Yeah, it's your boy Skyzmuzik, aka they call me Airplane Skies because I'm fly. You hear live, banging tables. Shout out Rado. We here, man. Bang.